Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Profit Good podcast. We are here again at Title Pro Studios in Bolton. I'm Lisa and I host this podcast. I work for Bolton CVS and we host the Proper Good programme, which is a programme of support for social enterprises and social economy organisations to help them develop, thrive, do all the amazing work that they do. We do that in a number of ways. We have a workshop programme, we have a business mentoring programme, we host a social enterprise network in our town to help connection and collaboration. And we've developed this podcast as a way to kind of talk about the work that we're doing there, as a way to spotlight some of the amazing social enterprises and organisations that we're working with, to highlight some of the issues and themes that we think are relevant to people. To talk about the support that we've got on offer. If you've watched before, welcome back. It's very nice to have you. If you've not, you're very welcome in this space. And I am joined today by 3 guests, which is a bit different. Often it's just me and one other person. It's really nice to have 3 people with us to talk about something a little bit different to ground that we've covered before. It's a bit sort of a bigger picture kind of issue. And that is the social economy, as I just used the phrase in the intro there, and I've used it a few times through the podcast, and I thought it'd be interesting for us to kind of do a bit of a deeper dive in, like, what is that? What does it mean? What do those words even mean? Why are they important? Why is the social economy important? With 3 people that I think will be able to give us some good insight on that. So probably the first thing to do is for everybody to introduce themselves. I will go this way. If you could tell us, like, Scylla style, what's your name and where do you come from?
Yeah, going to the left. That's quite interesting.
There you go.
Thanks for this invitation. It's great to be here. Jonathan Crabtree. I'm the Inclusive Economy Manager at Bolton Council.
Lovely.
So that looks after all things to do with business, investment, economic growth, and social value.
Wicked. Thanks, Jonathan.
No problem.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Helen Clayton, the Strategic Partnerships Manager at Bolton CVS, and I work with Lisa on some of the social economy programmes.
Thanks, Helen.
Hi, and I'm Dawn Yates-Obey. I'm Chief Exec of Bolton CVS, and also as part of that role, a Director of 10GM, which is a collaboration, a partnership of local infrastructure organisations across Greater Manchester.
Wicked. Thanks. It's great to have you all here. Thank you very much. That just made me think of something when you talked about 10GM there. I think one of the bits of work that's quite important in Proper Good is that we're part of a national programme that's in 6 areas across the UK, but one of which is Greater Manchester. So Proper Good's in Bolton, Oldham, Stockport and Wigan. And I think that's important and sort of relevant a little bit to our conversation, because that means that we get to connect not only with the sector in our town, but also across the city region, and we get to share and connect and collaborate. And certainly the things that we're going to talk about today are really relevant wherever you work in this space, really. So I think that's really important. So I think a good place for us to start, a good opening question, is going to be, what does the phrase social economy mean to you? Like, and how might you define that? And I'll go to the right this time, just in the interest of balance.
Jonathan gets to start the easy bit first, the intro.
Yeah, sorry, I should have reversed that.
So the social economy is it's businesses, organisations that run for social purpose. So of course, businesses make a profit, and that is legitimate, and we all want to make a profit when we're running any kind of organisation. But that profit is reinvested back into communities, whether that's through the workforce, through the work that they do, alongside their business trading, if you like. So for us, as an example, at Bolton CVS, we own a building, we're landlords, we have tenants and we hire out rooms. And the profit that we make from that is reinvested back into supporting our core charitable purpose. So for me, social economy is it's that ecosystem across lots of different organisations, all working to improve the lives, the people, the place of Bolton within our town, within our specific area. So we're all here to do good, to make a difference. It's people who care, people who have a passion, people who want to make a difference and do that through their business and their work.
Yeah. Thanks, John. I wanted to say something. I'm going to keep it buttoned. I'm going to let you guys speak. What about you, Helen? What does it mean to you? You got anything to add?
So it's organisations that put in the social and the environment above profit. That's their main purpose, and it can be co-ops or mutuals or social enterprises, a wide variety of organisations that operate like a business, but they're putting the community first. And what's really interesting is that a lot of the social enterprises in the social economy that we've come across, they're built around individuals who see a need in their community, have a passion, they understand how to help in that community, how to make a difference, but they know they need it to be sustainable. So they build a model around it that's sustainable. It's a business, it's got income. And a lot of the support that we give through Proper Good is helping those people understand their business model and making it sustainable, so they understand their income and their expenditure and what their plans are going to be. Because it's easy to sort of say, well, the money comes second, but it doesn't. It's operating a business model, and the funding and the money has to come, not grant funding, it's generated income has to come first in order for them to be able to do that good in their community.
Yeah, I agree. And what about you, Jonathan, from your sort of perspective? What have you got anything to add to that?
Well, I think all of the above, but I do think as well, if you're trying to sort of sum it up in my head, it would be around where sort of commerce meets community, and where profit meets purpose. So it's those sort of interactions. And I think, as Dawn and Helen have said, it's more than just the transactional thing. It's more about the ecosystem and the thing, the sort of the hub that can be built. And in Bolton, I think, where we're viewing it from a economic development point of view and from a council perspective, from looking at economic growth and the borough's growth plan, the social economy is not just a nice to have bit of that. It's absolutely needs to be and is intrinsic to that process. So it's a special ingredient really that we need in locality. And we want to see more of, and want to encourage and enable as a council.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's a special ingredient.
Yes, but and I think for me there's something that you all kind of drew on there. I was doing a little bit of reading to kind of help me formulate in my mind, like I say this all the time and I know what it is, but how do you actually sum it up? And I read something around, it was kind of, the phrase was coined 20 years ago or whatever, but to kind of move away from the phrase the voluntary sector. And that's not because the voluntary sector isn't really important. It's not a really important phrase, of course it is, but the social economy, it's kind of trying to highlight the economic contribution actually of this sector, which often can get lost in the sense of that it's lots of people doing loads of good, which obviously it is, but that economic bit's really important, isn't it, in the economic contribution, and that, as you say, where profit and people come together. You started talking about it there, Jonathan. So the next thing that I wanted to kind of ask is how, so you've kind of said what your roles are, and we've talked about what we think the social economy is and what it looks like in Bolton, but what do your roles mean in that then? What do you do in your jobs that's kind of contribute to the social economy? As soon as you started to allude to that, we'll go.
I mean, I think, again, from a council position, it's about enabling and creating the conditions for the social economy to grow and thrive. Councils, and I said we're not here to do everything. We can't do anything. We shouldn't be doing everything. But it's about creating the environment and creating it for that ecosystem to take hold and develop and grow. Because it does link clearly and strongly to economic development in terms of local job creation, wealth creation, but also wealth sharing in the borough. Supply chains, getting organisations embedded into those sort of local supply chain thinking. So those are the real tangible economic development benefits of a thriving social economy locally. And I said from a council perspective, and our role is to enable and create those conditions. That might be through infrastructure. It goes more than funding.
Yeah.
It's about infrastructure. It's about confidence. It's about collaboration. It's about creating, I say, the systems and the policy framework as well. So interpreting what policy framework is coming from a national level or a combined authority level, and how does that then land in Bolton, and how do we then bring the social economy into the forefront of that conversation? So it's not, as I say, it's not just an afterthought. It's not just a nice thing to do. It's strategic. It's important. It's vital. So that's how it sort of shapes and molds into our work.
That's really interesting to hear, and how it's central to those economic development sort of priorities. And the bit that you said there about collaboration, and I think that's one of the things we're really trying to do through Proper Good, is like try and create the spaces, this conversation being one of them, but our networking, some of the spaces John's, it's to kind of bring these worlds together of the commercial sector, the social economy, and the kind of policy council. But how we make sure that all of those conversations are joined up so that everybody benefits, and it's not just about that the social economy organisations benefit, because as you've just said, the contribution that they make benefits everybody. It's really integral to our town's development. What about you, Helen? So you're the strategic partnerships manager.
So you just said that's what I bit.
Tell us how you do that. Obviously, I know because we work very closely.
So we, at Bolton CVS, we've got some really practical support programs for social economy organisations and social enterprises. And so we're helping kind of develop and build that sector. So that is ongoing. We've always got that working. But what we have to be doing alongside that is banging the drum for social economy organisations and making that connection between kind of council or the statutory providers and businesses, so they understand where these social economy organisations are, who they are, what the benefits of them are, and how to get them kind of into their supply chains, or how to kind of use them and utilise them. I think that there are lots of businesses out in Bolton who really do want to do good. And if they kind of join forces with local social economy organisations, it can amplify the work that everybody's doing. It can bring sort of the bits of capacity from businesses and then the knowledge and experience of social economy organisations. So a lot of what we do at Bolton CVS is kind of bringing that all together, amplifying voices, promoting, making it easier for those things to happen, and kind of taking opportunities where they are for social enterprises. And for example, at the moment, social value is really important.
Yeah, we talked about that on the last episode, actually, so it'd be really interesting to hear what you've got to say about that.
So social value is a term that's being used a lot in lots of different spaces and maybe in lots of different ways. And that's kind of the first thing that's important to understand about it. So we're spending some time looking into what is social value, what do social economy organisations need to know, how does social value draw together businesses, the council, and social economy organisations. What is it? What do social economy organisations need to be able to explain about themselves for businesses to know that links into their social value?
Shared language piece.
Yes. Because at the moment, different sectors are using that language very differently. So we're kind of bridging that gap and trying to create more opportunities for social economy organisations.
I think I was going to say, it's in terms of that amplification, I think that's really important as well. And whereas we as a local authority and as a council could do more in that space in terms of amplifying, get my teeth in, amplifying the sector and the social economy. So, what practical steps could we take within our small service area, and one service area in the council to sort of that's got the mission and around economic growth. How can we amplify the voice of the social economy in that space? So really sort of interested in that and how we drive that forward, and we collaborate ourselves in that space as well. Because you guys and are doing do the fantastic work, and I think we could also collaborating that with you as well. So there's connectivity to be had there. I think just reflecting back on perhaps a comment I made in the first bit, technical term, not really, first segment around employment. That's key. It's key, but it's not just about employment. I think it needs to be about meaningful opportunity, and meaningful work, and a meaningful experience. So it could be through volunteering, it could be through individuals getting involved with their communities. So it doesn't necessarily mean about, when we're talking about social economy, straight into employment. It's about those other opportunities in the round, I think.
Yeah, and absolutely. And as you said, Helen, in the social economy, lots of our organisations actually meaning. If we think about the idea of meaning and what makes a good life, is kind of to have meaning. And the organisations that we work with and work alongside, they offer those opportunities in droves, don't they? Actually, work within a social economy organisation will always have some meaning, won't they? I'm mindful to come to you over here, Dawn, on the other side of this beautiful clock. So obviously you lead Bolton CVS and in 10GM and it'd so I know that there are a million different facets to your roles. Kind of like, how do you connect in with the social economy then? What do you see your role in that space?
So all the strategic conversations that I and many others are in, there is a genuine ambition to move to a more preventative model. So to reduce health inequalities, to tackle poverty, to be more environmentally conscious, to improve people's life chances, to reduce isolation, to put people's voice at the centre of decisions. So key strategic decisions that are taken that can sometimes feel quite distant, and they're taken in spaces that lots of people will never have access to. But there's a real want and desire to put the insight and intelligence of the people who we're talking about when we're making those decisions, what they think, what their experience is, what they see as the solutions. So that ambition is there. And it is quite a shift, and it does feel a bit like turning the Titanic, really. It's not a quick win, it's a long-term ambition. And I think our social economy has that nailed. We know how to do that. We're doing that already. It's intrinsically built into the way that we operate, to the way that we include, decisions are taken, businesses are owned by communities, and all the kind of social purpose and that investment back into communities that we've talked about and individuals is all about tackling those, in one way or another, inevitably we'll trace back to those kind of big strategic, these are the things that we need to look at to really work towards prevention, so that we're not, as a town, as a region, nationally, spending a disproportionate amount of money in addressing kind of urgent, critical situations, whether we're talking about removing children from their homes or people turning up at A&E, or whatever, that a lot of that disproportionate amount of our kind of Bolton pound, if you like, our Greater Manchester pound, is spent on addressing crisis. And that's, everybody knows that's not a sensible way to operate as an ecosystem. Like if we could remove that money and that investment and that people power, because it's not all about money, but in some, when you're looking at the kind of bottom line, sometimes it is, and the bottom line can drive decisions, and sometimes that maybe steers in a direction that is more short term rather than that long term view. So we know if we could take that investment from the tip of the triangle and put it into the foundation, which is communities, social economy, we wouldn't need as much at the top. And it is a difficult shift, because you can't stop funding the urgent statutory requirements and the urgent care and the people in crisis. So it's a kind of slow maneuver, and I think that our strategic partners are realizing that we have a lot to learn from those that are operating in a socially driven way. whether that's around governance structures, decision making, how to invest, how to get best value for money, what social value really looks like. Because it can sometimes feel a bit perverse, if that's an appropriate word, that as a charity, as a social business, as a cooperative, if you're tendering, like, through an official process that has kind of national ways of doing things or localized decisions that have been taken about how to manage contracts, that we have to prove our social value, and actually it's innate, and also we kind of have to prove it in the way that a private business might, as the extra. So yes, you're going to build this thing or you're going to deliver this thing, but what else will you do? Which is a really important question to ask. But for us, what else we're going to do is the core bit, actually. And sometimes the building the thing or the delivering the service is just the enabler to be able to do the real work. So there's, and Helen mentioned about, we are working really closely in partnership to turn the dial on some of those ways that we make decisions, some of the infrastructure and systems and frameworks that we've almost accidentally built in with good intention, but can have a counter effect on what we're trying to achieve.
It's really interesting. That's so the last conversation that I had here, it might not be the last one in terms of when people view it, but was with Karen Smith, who's one of our delivery partners on Proper Good, and we were talking about social impacts and social value, and that we spent quite a bit of time talking about that, about how social economy organisations, the social value is baked in, and it's really important that we continue to be able to have these conversations about how we change those systems. And it sounds like a lot of what you were saying there, Dawn, is kind of a lot of your role is in influencing those systems on a strategic level, those structures that the social economy sits within and interacts with, making sure that they understand kind of the benefits and value of the way that the social economy works. And I think that was another thing when I was thinking a bit about what social economy means to me, and there's something about that people power and governance structures and having people's community voice at the centre of decision making, and that feels really integral to the social economy as well, doesn't it? Whether it's in a formal or informal way as well, it might sometimes just because of the way that an organisation works, they're able to represent the community of people that they serve.
I think that's really important difference with social economy organisations, social enterprises that we support. It's somebody who knows their local community, who knows the cohort that they're supporting, and comes up with a solution to it that maybe other people wouldn't. Statutory services maybe wouldn't, because of the constraints and the frameworks that they work in. Do you know what I mean? And maybe professionals wouldn't. They do come up with something different, and what we've seen time and time again is that makes more impact. Because they've got buy-in, they know what they're doing, they understand the people they're supporting, so that's a massive turnaround. And what's worth noting is that for those people, though, when they're running their business, it feels different to them. It feels different than turning up every day to a 9 to 5. And those people need loads of support because it's something you're passionate about. You can see the good you're doing. You can get really involved. You can work a 50-hour week without kind of realising it, just to take the next opportunity and the next opportunity. So I really do think, like, collectively we have a role in kind of nurturing, do you know what I mean? And taking care of and realising that this is a different way of doing things, but it takes a lot, do you know, it takes a lot from the people who are doing it. So I think it's just worth us thinking about how we do that, and we don't sort of just treat it all in exactly the same way as we do for the businesses.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. And I think that's part of what we've tried to do with Proper Good. There's the skills and the knowledge and that piece that's really important, the workshops and the consultant support, but that bit of kind of that peer-to-peer support, that kind of recognition of, founder burnout is a very, very real thing in our sector, as it is in the traditional business sector as well. But because people live and breathe this work, it's what wakes them up in the morning, but that takes a toll. And so that's really, if we think about the legacy, we talk about the legacy of this work, that's one thing we'd really love to leave, I think, isn't it? These spaces where people can look after each other and we recognise that it's hard, like it's graft, this gig sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think we should be shy about that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That in order for this way of working, it needs just that kind
Well, it's compassionate, isn't it? Like to work in compassionate ways that are not transactional and they're relational. They take a toll. And it's really important that we wrap round. And from what you've all said there, clearly that is what you're doing in your roles. You're trying to build the structures and the processes to have a recognition of this work that then can wrap round the support that people need.
Yeah, and I think there's always challenges, and again around funding and when funding lands and timeframes and how do we get these things mobilised and delivered within what are often timeframes that we can't control as either a council or as an ecosystem that tied into the funding agreements. So I think it is that having the structures in place ready to go almost, where as Dawn said and Helen said is a consultative approach, is a collaborative approach. I think we're doing that. So we're well placed for when the idea being, we are well placed for when funding opportunities do come around. We can demonstrate co-design, we can mobilise quickly, we can get that community voice heard, we can consult properly, rather than just thinking, oh, if funding's right, what do we do? How do we get this mobilised? We'll go over there because that's what we've always done. We can think, we're well placed to think differently. And I think there's evidence of us doing that. And again, strategically, I think that the preventative model is really, 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 really important to that work, or as a guiding principle. So we're getting to the root, we're looking to get to root causes when we're putting programs or funding things together or building hubs or ecosystems. It's about that preventative model. So I think that's the direction of travel on the flight path that we're all on. There is probably a challenge there, saying we could be amplifying more, we could be shouting about that work and saying this is actually we're doing a lot of this and demonstrating that.
And that's the challenge to all of us, I think, isn't it, around demonstrating and I don't know whether you might want to speak to, but like maybe where the opportunities are for pushback sometimes and some of those kind of time frames that we find ourselves working within that present a challenge to doing the work in the way that we'd all want to do it, and I imagine there's some of the conversations that you find yourself in and trying to kind of find where the push is, and
the even when it can be a really tight turnaround and everybody pulls out all the stops and gets it over the line, and we do push back on that as much as we can, and it's never intentional. There's always a legitimate reason why. And sometimes it's about the number of links in the chain, isn't it? And actually, if we were all sat around the same table having the one conversation, there wouldn't be so many steps to it. So that's the kind of systems things that we're working on. And the Live Well movement is recognising that, and actually let's start with communities about making decisions rather than starting with kind of statutory requirements. Let's talk to people first and let them build the programme of investment in their community rather than the other, respond to what we've decided is best for you and your community. And then a further pressure of that is that they're often 12 months. And so we're also pushing for those kind of longer term commitments around, and that is kind of statutory funding really. And of course the social economy, what we want to do, and Helen talked in the intro about, building a business that you're not I don't want Bolton CVS to be completely reliant on grants and statutory contracts. Because it makes us vulnerable because of those reasons. If we don't get a contract renewal quick enough, are we having to make, some difficult decisions? So it's that having that balanced mix of economy within your own business plan, isn't it, as well, which is important for us. I mean, we're a bigger organisation. Yeah, when you start small, maybe it is quite, one dimensional, but I think as soon as you can, and through speaking to others and looking at through the networks and the other spaces that you've described, understanding how to diversify where your income comes from, because as much as people are passionate and will overwork and sometimes burn out, and we want to think about well-being, we also, I think, have a duty to show the full cost of what our work costs in reality, because unintentionally, because people are passionate and they care, and they'll put an extra shift in, and they'll, get that contract in on time, even if it means working over the weekend and all those things, that is normalised, I think, particularly within social purpose-driven, people-driven organisations, is that it doesn't show the reality of what that actually costs. Because if we were to, budget that effectively, it probably wouldn't get over the line, and it wouldn't be commercially viable. So and that's on, that's on us. If I'm the one who's working 2 days extra a week, a commissioner is not, that's not their problem, that's mine. And if I burn out, that becomes our organisation's problem eventually. So almost subsidising through passion and commitment and time, whether, wherever that income is coming from, I think is, even though it gives a really good service and we're absolutely doing the right thing, I think it creates a bit of a false economy, because we're not showing the true value of our work. And that maybe for some people feeds into a kind of unconscious bias of, well, that bit of our economy is the nice to have. It's the warm, fuzzy feeling of doing something good. Actually, no, people are delivering serious, life-saving, life-impacting, vital services, whether that's through the core business that brings the money in, and or through their social investment that they do as a result of that. And I think we kind of accidentally sometimes make it look otherwise, so that we're not taking it
look easy.
I think we make it look easy and affordable.
Stopping doing that, we make it look difficult.
I don't know if it's the right word, but I guess from a bit more of a mainstreaming of the social economy in terms of how it sort of fits into conversations and where it fits into people's thoughts and processes and decision making, rather than being the sort of the fuzzy nice to have element. There's got to be a move to sort of more mainstreaming of that. And again, I think from my sort of exposure to it in terms of the role that I'm in, we sort of see elements of that, but it's not the default, I don't think, position at the moment around that sort of mainstreaming of the social economy into. It might be put there in terms of aspiration and ambition for Bolton as a borough, which it is. But how does that then filter down into decision making?
A lot of the organisations I talk to, often particular ones that work within the health and wellbeing space, will use that phrase parity of esteem, and that idea that, as you said, Dawn, it's not lots of the organisations within the social economy in Bolton are delivering real frontline vital services, often contracted in by the NHS or the local authority to deliver, because there's a recognition that they are able to reach people that perhaps those statutory services couldn't on their own. But there still sometimes feels like there isn't that parity of esteem, as you were saying, that the idea that it's kind of fluffy and nice. Actually, these are professional organisations running professional services with well qualified people. And that feels like it speaks to what you're saying there, Jonathan, about kind of bringing those people, those ideas into the mainstream, that we're talking about all of these organisations on the same footing.
I think there's an element of sort of risk element with it as well, that we need to sort of try and break through and work through and understand more of that aspect. As okay, well, if we're a commissioner commissioning services, how does that there may be, and I have no evidence of this, but I'm just sort of thinking as we're talking here about, is there in that unconscious bias or element around risk that comes into people's minds, that
like a perceived risk,
essentially. And I think that's probably what I'm trying to understand a bit more around, because these are and when I've been out there seeing these organisations, some of these organisations in locality, they're intelligent, structured, innovative.
Yeah.
So they bring all those fantastic qualities, but there still is an element of that. Oh well, they're in the social economy, therefore there's a risk.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I can't say with any hard evidence, and I wouldn't say today if that's a fact, but it's just an interesting thought process, really, to explore.
That's really interesting. I think it's perceived risk, and that's maybe something that we need to explore, how we're kind of amplifying and working on that. But there's the other way of looking at that it's time for risk. You know, health inequalities getting broader and wider. And what is that risk? How risky is that risk? And how risky is letting health inequalities get worse? Because do you know what I mean? There's an economic impact.
My view and my personal view is that within the boundaries and parameters of what we can look at, then innovate, taking risks as an element is a key element of innovation. And if we're doing things different, we're changing models and we're looking at reform, we've got to be innovative. The social economy gives you that flexibility and adaptability and experience through lived experience, through the organisations that are in that space. And I think that's really where we want to be as an authority, potentially looking at how do we get that balance right between statutory, what do we know and what we're comfortable with, and innovation. In terms of when we're looking at services and service design and how we allocate and funding and the like. So that's quite it's a big area, but it's quite an interesting area.
Yeah,
if we want innovation, we need time, because we, as an infrastructure organisation, are spending quite a lot of time and capacity proving and showing what the social economy can do. And so if there's funding available, we're trying to get it into the social economy. But then like you're saying, processes and procedures get in the way. And when we get to the point where we're having to deliver something within 5 months, and we want to do it, it's right for the social economy to do it. The thing that we do when we do things very quickly is we miss that innovation. And then we do the thing that Dawn was talking about before, about we make it happen and we make it work. But then what happens is we make it happen and we make it work. And then we make it something else happen and make it work. And then, so the sector's working like that the entire time, and it just, there's a support need there. There's a kind of check.
And that kind of, for me, sort of comes back to that bit about compassion and about well-being and support around, actually from a systemic perspective, like how do we build in, it's like thinking time, isn't it? Thinking and reflection time. Often what the sector doesn't get a lot of is the ability to pause and reflect, because they're constantly just trying to, the next thing, just to keep the lights on and to keep helping the people that they're helping and doing the work that they do. And it'd be wonderful, wouldn't it, to see a shift towards a space where actually, do you know what, you can just all have some funding to just think for a bit and figure out actually how could you enhance the amazing work that you already do. We've kind of alluded to it quite a bit already in this conversation, but one of the things I wanted to ask you all about is what, in your various roles, what do you see at the moment as being kind of the biggest opportunities? And I'd like to start with opportunities, because that feels kind of, there are opportunities, but also challenges around kind of working within and alongside and supporting the social economy at the moment. And you've all said a few bits, so it's more a question if you've got anything else you'd like to add, given that sort of invitation. Like, what about for you, Dawn? Obviously in the conversations you're in, what does the landscape look like for you at the minute?
So what I get really excited and giddy about in some of the meetings that I'm in is the feeling of a genuine want to shift to more community-led decision making, more putting power into the hands of people about whom we're making decisions on their behalf. So that feels like a really exciting opportunity. And I think it's also a huge challenge, because in order to give power, people, organisations, structures, institutions have to let go of power. It's not just that we're doubling it and splitting it in two. It's like, if we really mean this genuinely, like you were saying, Jonathan, about risk and innovation, being bold and brave and doing things differently, something has to change. that is both exciting and could be transformative, but also terrifying for some and unnerving. And there are statutory responsibilities, and we have an obligation to look after the most vulnerable people and to create opportunities for our young people. And we all have responsibilities as well as legal ones. And if we know a way of doing that feels effective, hopefully, even if we recognize it isn't always, it's familiar and it's built into the way that we do things. It's embedded as our way of working and operating. To lift that, bring it out, have a look at it, invite other people to have a look at it, and then to hand it over to somebody else is really vulnerable. Like I know that would, that is for me when decisions are taken. I can experience that vulnerability of like, okay, you do this thing. What do you think of it? And we work really hard in Bolton CVS to create a culture and an environment where we can do that, and we do take some risks. And you're right about the risk kind of appetite, and we have to be willing to fall down and pick each other up and dust ourselves off and learn from it and move on. Because if the pain of the fall feels too uncomfortable, we'll not put ourselves in a position where we might fall over. And nobody wants that either. We don't want to create further vulnerability by making a mistake that could have a negative impact and be counterproductive. So it's not an irrational. It's not an irrational kind of sense of vulnerability. It makes sense. But to ultimately do what we say we want to move towards, we're going to have to fall down sometimes.
Like failure is really important, isn't it?
And put in the make sure there's a soft landing, and make sure there's people there to catch you and help you identify the thing you're going to trip over in 12 months' time that you can't see yet. And that's the thing around networks, collaboration, partnership, that is really meaningful, and everybody's equally valued in that space, no matter whether you're a small single person business owner or you're a part of a huge organization. And I think that can be part of the challenge really with our sector and the social economy, is that we're not a homogenous, neatly organised and arranged, easily identifiable. You can point to it and know exactly what it is and ask them a question and that everybody will answer in the same way. We're not that. And that is part of what can make us a bit kind of slippery and unwieldy and difficult. I don't know how to work with that over there because I don't really understand it. I can see it's good, but I don't know how to. Again, I think that's part of our role as infrastructure, both Bolton CVS locally and 10GM on a Greater Manchester footprint, is to create a point of contact, not to then own that and take decisions on behalf of, but to be that bridge and gateway into our sector, who are then in the nooks and crannies and connected into communities and can have those conversations that anybody turning up with a lanyard and knocking on a front door would never have. So that we get that really rich insight and intelligence that can then influence the decisions. So it feels like we're all in it together and owning what it is that we're working towards, rather than, well, I'll be commissioned over here and I can point you to someone else who's great to work with over there. That kind of exchange and transaction is important. But actually what we're moving towards is we all care deeply about this place and the people that live here, and we want to work together to create the environment where everyone can live their best life. And how do we create that collectively? And to do, we're not there yet, and we're going to have to do some radical change in order to get there. And to do that radical change, we're going to have to fall over and be all right with it and be bold and brave together.
Absolutely. And that learning from that process, I think, is just as important as how many of these have you done, or what sort of outputs you generated. I think the learning, the shared experience, the impacts around individuals and what that means to an individual and what journey they're being on in whatever form of support or engagement they have within the social economy or with the social economy. I think that's equally, if not more important than in my view, my personal view, of how many of these have you done? Because to me, that's a so what question. So what, the more intrinsic, valuable stuff is about the journey people have been on, how we've engaged with what sort of life-changing experiences and impact that may have hopefully will have had. That's what we should be really looking to sort of understand and measure and learn from. In my view.
I agree.
So I think, in terms of opportunities, I suppose, I think we've talked about it already, and Dawn's referenced it, the sort of the preventative model, where that brings together not just the sort of employability space, but the health space, the understanding of what's going on in our residents' lives, what may be their challenges, what's preventing them for engaging from a training course, or what are those barriers, and then putting things in place that are suitable to addressing those barriers, that's tailored to that individual. I think that's the opportunity we've got with things like Live Well. We're still not there with Live Well. We don't 100% know exactly how it's going to land, but we are working hard behind the scenes collectively, not just in isolation, as a partnership to make so we do get to that point. But I think that will be hugely impactful once, and the potential's there for that once that's in place, as an opportunity. And I think you could look at Live Well as a model and think, well, weren't we here 20 years ago or 30? Have we not been down this road before? But in my simple mind, it's got to be sensible. There's got to be efficiency. You've got to be more productive and collaborative and joined up. If, for example, you have a space, you have a hub, and you've got multiple engagement with services, with support networks. So if you're a young mum with a child and got some particular issues there with that, what you can engage with that support at that point. You're not having to think, well, where do I go for this? Where is this available? I'm going to have to go over there to get that. Well, if we can create that model in locality, and several of these in locality across our borough, that's got to be good in my view.
And it's that bit about sort of seeing people as whole people, isn't it? Not just somebody who's a mum or somebody who's out of work. Or it's like I've seen people in the round, wrapping therefore anything that person might need around them, whilst sort of having an eye on the root causes of why they find themselves there. And again, I think that's all the stuff that the social economy is great at doing, like that kind of, you very rarely very rarely go into an organisation in our sector who's working with somebody and they'll say they're just working with them on this thing. They'll say Doreen's come in knitting, but she's also talking about her benefits, and we've got her tapped into some health support and this and that, and she's connecting with her family. And it's that viewing people as whole people, and it feels like there's maybe some move on a sort of strategic level that's starting to recognise that. And actually, how do we look at root causes and holistic sort of models of support, which is the bit that our sector can just do. It's the bread and butter, isn't it? The absolute bread and butter of what our sector does.
I agree. But we're talking about opportunities.
Opportunities and challenges broadly.
Yeah. I think the opportunities are, you used to meet people in this sector and cross sector, and you'd meet someone and they would get it. And they would think the same way. And you'd be like, okay, that person, we can make some change with that person. But then that isn't sustainable. That person moves on, the process stays the same. Do you know what I mean? It's actually that person that found a way around it. What feels different now is that people, across different sectors, we are all speaking the similar language now. It's not quite the same language yet, but it's similar language. And if we can change the processes behind those things, the people understand more, and we can change the processes. I think that's what's going to make the biggest in sort of long-term impact. So historically, we've just worked with a bunch of people who found ways around things and have made these work. But if we can leave processes that actually work in the way that's best for the social economy, then we're going to leave a kind of lasting impact.
So I wanted to ask a question. So, and you used the phrase, so what, Jonathan? And I think that's really important. So we've been talking about the social economy, what it does, how we hopefully support it through our roles, all that kind of stuff. Like, but so what? Like, why is it important? Why, Proper Good that is really funded with the sole aim of supporting and helping the social economy to grow. Like, why is that important? Why would we do that? Why would we put public money there? And I'd love to invite us to kind of think about that in a way that's sort of framed a bit around imagination. And so, like, if all the work that you're doing in your role, everything that you do to try and support the social economy to thrive was successful in 5 years' time, it's all paid off, everything's looking bonny. Like, how do things look? Like, why does that matter? What's the change? What's the change to people's lives that a thriving social economy can make? Like, where does it touch? What things would be different? I'm going to look at you because you're looking at me really intently.
I was thinking.
Were you thinking?
So it's that social economy is part of an inclusive economy, isn't it? So inclusive economy is where there's equity and everyone has the same opportunities, and work is good and support is available. So kind of that social economy growth is a part of that kind of broader kind of concept. But we've got to get this bit right first before we can move towards an inclusive economy, which means that we can tackle those inequalities in our community. What was the question?
Kind of like why is it important? And I think you've kind of nailed it there. Like what would the difference be? So say the social economy is thriving and is sort of helping our economy become more inclusive. Like, what would that mean for people living in Bolton? Like, how might that look?
It would mean that the support that's available to them is localized and it's created around them, so it will work for them. And that people trust kind of to go places, help and support. And the social economy grows a bit more organically as well. So it means that when things happen and when things change, we can flex. Do you know what I mean? And the support can change with whatever kind of people's needs are. So a more flexible, local kind of immediate response and support for people.
Yeah. That's great. What have you got anything to add to that, Dawn? Kind of
I could wave a magic wand.
What does it look like?
It's about people's experience, isn't it? That's the ultimate so what. So, if we walk through any communities in Bolton, go to any park, go to any, walk past any school or where, be immersed in our community and see how people are living and interacting and supporting each other and the opportunities that are available to them and how safe they feel and how included and part of, something bigger. I think that, when we get to a point where we can pretty much drop in on any person and ask them, how's things? What do you need? What's missing? Do you know how to get that? Do you know where to go for support? Do you know who to speak? Have you got people to connect with and reach out to and to get advice from? Or, are the services that you need available to you? And we get positive responses because my idea of living my best life is not the same as yours or anybody else's. So, it's not that everyone's earning a such amount and has got qualified to a certain level or, whatever. What I aspire for myself will be completely different to somebody else, which is good. That's great. But if everybody can say, there might be challenges, but I know where to go. I know how to work through this. I've got the support that I need. I've got access to all the things that I need to help me, live my best life. And I think that's when we know that the social economy is seeped in, infiltrated and really made a difference across our communities, and not alone in isolation, because it isn't, as we've talked about, it's us all adopting and learning from some of the the practices and the ways of working and the intention behind decision making. And us all adopting that across all our sectors.
That's a really good thing you said there, like understanding of intention. And I think that's really important on all sides, isn't it? And that's kind of one of the reasons for convening this conversation today, really, kind of just that understanding of intention of what sits behind things on all sides of a conversation.
Could I have a magic wand as well, please?
You can. I mean, you've skipped to my next question, but go for it. Yeah. What happens with your magic wand?
If I had a magic wand, though, it would be very straightforward for these CSUs to measure their social impact. There would be systems that would work for social economy organisations as much as it worked for other organisations.
Yeah.
And that inherent impact that social economy organisations have would count in the processes that we have when we decide who we use, which kind of organisations we're using for support.
Which feels completely achievable in the 5-year window that you were given.
Absolutely.
And work is happening around that, isn't it? It being adopted across the piece for everyone is a bit down the line, but definitely working towards that.
Yeah. And there's something there, isn't there, in what we've all just talked about around being brave and innovation and trying new things. And, maybe here's the place where we try that new system or start those new conversations about how we measure that stuff. And what about for you, Jonathan? So what would it look like to you? A thriving social economy leading to an inclusive economy. How does that look from yours?
I think it's hand in hand, isn't it, in terms of an aspiration. A thriving social economy means a thriving Bolton economy, and I think that's where we need to get to and work towards, is having those things working absolutely integral, side by side, connected. Because one without the other doesn't feel right, isn't right? It needs to be joined, and that's joined in the sense of connected. That's not something completely radical there, but I think that's my sort of view. And I think where we've talked on sort of where perceived opportunity or actual opportunity or real opportunities are visible, and our residents are informed about those, and they don't feel that there isn't opportunity for them in either engaging with wherever they are in their stage of life and wherever their circumstances are, that it's not hopeless. There is opportunity, and I think that's an aspiration that we all should be working towards, whether it be in economic development or social economy or inclusive. So that's something I would like to sort of see, and I think again that messaging is that achievable in the time. I know we've moved on to timeframes now, 5-year time frame. I think again, flight path direction, absolutely, that's achievable. And that's incumbent on all of us to work together to get to that point. We haven't really touched on, I suppose, businesses as such today. Maybe that's something else we can talk on at another time. But I think that the opportunities for businesses to connect with a vibrant system, joined up system in Bolton, is a clear opportunity. I think it talks to Helen's point around single systems around measuring, how do we measure these sort of impacts as well. But I'm a sort of firm believer in, as I sort of said at the outset, not just a job for job's sake. It's the challenge should be there around good employment. It should be there about what a meaningful role looks like. And people should be supported in that to feel that they're contributing, their voice and contributions are welcomed and sort of supported. So I think good employment is a massive opportunity where we need to move towards with Bolton. And there are sort of systems out there. Proper Good clearly supports that work as well, as a supported as part of that support offer. But I think it is incumbent on employers and our employers to look at how their resource and their staffing and are we doing enough in that space? Are we creating that opportunity to engage with the social economy within their working environment and their workspace? So that's a big opportunity as well.
Brilliant. And I think we'd really welcome that. There's a few kind of key words for me that came out there, and all the way through there was something you used the word hope there, Jonathan, and I think that's really something important where we find ourselves at the moment. And we're talking about, and you also alluded to, when you talked about live well, people might feel like, oh, is this not a wheel that we've been round before? But But even if it is, we can approach it with hope and optimism as the opportunity that it is, and actually hope something that we all need in the crazy world as it is at the moment. And I think that's something, and just thinking about what's the organisations that we know and work with within the social economy, if you think about one thing that they all have in common, it's hope, isn't it? They work with people who perhaps are in a tricky time or whatever, and they offer this hopeful, supportive space that you can find meaning. And that was another word that you used there a lot, meaning and meaningful employment. And again, I think the organisations that we work with just have that stuff in spades. It's just baked into what they do. And I think at this time that we find ourselves, where, as you say, Don, there's appetite to change and innovate and look at how we learn these lessons, kind of the social economy organisations in Bolton couldn't be a better place to inform that, could they? Because they've just got that within them. I'm mindful that we're coming towards the end of our time of talking together. It's been a really lovely chat. I've got 2 questions to ask, but you've already jumped the gun on one of them.
Sorry.
It's all right.
I noticed that Dawn had a magic, so I wanted.
You wanted a magic wand. That's classic. So I'm going to come to you first, Jonathan. So my first closing question was, it's a nice one. It's a lovely, playful question. If you had unlimited resources, like the council just went, we've won the lottery, we've got all the money in the world, what's one thing you would change that would really effectively bring about realising some of your aims in your role or in your department as a whole? Like, is there one thing that you think, like, God, if you could just put a load of weight behind this thing here, this could really make a massive change? Or maybe it's not possible. Maybe it's much more complex than that.
Yeah, I think, again, magic wand around funding or unlimited resources is always sort of thoughts in your mind, isn't it, in terms of what would to do if this was something that was at the bottom of the spit almost, or it's really difficult. It is quite. I can imagine it is quite a complex. There isn't probably one answer to that. I do think some of the stuff we've sort of alluded to already around, and it's really boring this perhaps, but systems, systems and processes. I think, well, if I had a magic wand, is that what I would do? Systems and no, but perhaps it does sort of drive a lot of
and we've talked
changes
about that a lot, haven't we? That underpins so much,
and it's legacy because they get embedded, and we continue to use them even when they're not particularly useful anymore. So getting really robust systems, processes, frameworks that work, I think that'd be a huge win.
I've become a bureaucrat, I think. Oh dear. But no, I think that's one thing I would sort of improve and move things on, and because we talk and all the aspirations are there. I think without a robust change or adaptation or more flexible approaches to systems and processes, it is always a danger. Then we go back to just doing what we've always done.
Brilliantly. They're the mechanism that take ideas to actions, aren't they? They're important.
I think something else, I guess, and this is just really pie in the sky, but I do remember back in 10, 20 years ago, there was a comment made, and it was by a politician, and I'm not going to say which party they're in, but it was about responsible businesses. And it got basically laughed down, and thought, what? Because they were in power. That sort of probably gives it away. But I think that absolutely rings true, and I think there is a magic wand bringing in, or businesses being seen to be responsible and acting in a responsible way for the staff, for how they engage with local communities, for all the things we've talked about today. And again, responsible's probably moved on as a term, and it's probably not the right term now, but I'm sort of passionate about businesses doing the right thing, and our businesses in Bolton doing the right thing, and demonstrating that, and be able to celebrate that, and also see the business benefits that creates by doing that.
Absolutely,
So I think that message, that messaging around being responsible in that term as it was 20 years ago, is something I'd like to sort of work towards, and as an ambition rather than a magic wand movement. But I think that's something that sort of sticks with me a bit as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thanks. What about you, Helen? What are you doing with your unlimited resources, our magic one?
I think I'm going to help Jonathan with the processes and procedures.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
That's a real grown-up's decision to do. But that is the thing that not gets in our way, but dampens do you know what I mean? The innovations means we have to work really fast all the time. Means that we don't kind of show our best selves all the time, and we don't get to make the most out of every situation. So I'm going to put my magic wand in with your rather grown-up decision.
It's going to be some super powered processes, double magic wand system of processes. We're going to be flying.
Can you add a repository in there for an intelligence and insight so that we've got somewhere where we can make really informed decisions?
Yeah, nice.
I think, we've talked a lot about collaboration, about partnership, about purpose, and those are the kind of end game of the money, if that makes sense. So the money isn't a resource, is it? It's an enabler. It's a resource. Sorry, it's not. Well, if you get X amount of money, then that's not the thing that fixes the things. So it's just an enabler. Yeah. However, so more shifts in behaviours and attitudes and ways of working and culture for me feel like bigger wins sometimes than landing that amount of money. However, I will caveat that with, if we did have, and it doesn't even have to be limitless, just reasonable amount of money to fund the work that is happening, so that we can employ a couple of extra staff, so that everybody does get that thinking space that you talked about, isn't maxed out on everything because that's the only way we can make it stack up financially, because we do have to pay the rent and turn the lights on and pay people's bills, pay people's wages so that they can make their life function. We want to be good employers. We want to pay at least real living wage, and of course strive for more, because we are professional and experienced and qualified and delivering important services. So it's that value, the money allows us to value people, and it's the value that I think holds most of the weight for me. But being able to build in, almost what feels like, a bit extra, like more than, let's ask for more than we need. And actually it isn't more than we need. It is just building in really the space and the capacity to make really good decisions and to have conversations and to network and connect, not always be head down doing the do. Because also it's really important that we shout and celebrate and tell our story, but we don't have time for that. We did our AGM last night, which was a lovely event. I have not posted that on social media yet because I went straight to the next thing, and then I've done the next thing, and then I've come, and now I'm thinking, I didn't tell the story about the age yet, and it becomes a pressure thing of there isn't enough time to
and we see that all the time in the organisations that we work with, don't they? Because they're so head down, cracking on, doing the work that they're purpose driven to do. And I've talked a lot in these conversations about being able to work on the business rather than in the business sometimes. And I think that would be a great ask, wouldn't it? Like you say, it doesn't have to be limitless, just enough to kind of lift your head up every now and again.
And of course, there are new ways of working and new things we can build and create with resource that would be really helpful. But actually just resource what we're already doing, which is really helpful.
Stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Someone in this podcast say something about being on the balcony rather than the dance floor.
They did. That was Michelle from Talk, Listen, Change. And that,
the time.
Sometimes you've got to be on the balcony to have a little look. I love that. I've thought about that. Do you like
that's fantastic. Yeah, that's great.
People quote this podcast.
Nice. It's getting excited. Thank you so much. This has been a really wonderful conversation. I really appreciate your time. I've got one more thing to ask, if you don't mind. And it was like, we've acknowledged actually the challenges of working in these kinds of roles, and we're all really driven to do great work, but that's not without its struggles sometimes. Can take a lot out of you. So I'm really interested, and I ask everybody on the podcast this question, like, who or what inspires you to keep doing the work that you're doing at the moment? And I'm going to come to you first of all, Dawn.
I absolutely have a favourite quote, and I feel like it applies to respond to any question anything like this. So I'm going to stick with that, if that's all right.
I'm here for it.
So it's one of my favourite Maya quotes, and it talks about, she talks about, people will forget what you did and they'll forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I just like that applies. It feels like it applies to me and in my work and in everything I do every day.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the day-to-day task things, they're important. But in the end, you know, whenever anything that anybody's doing that is about improving or creating opportunities for people and the way that they live their life, actually sometimes the thing, the nuts and bolts of the thing that they're doing or the things that they say is not what stays with somebody in the end, but them feeling valued and heard and seen and safe and, you know, inspired to try something new and to take a risk and to be bold and to step out of their comfort zone and to speak to some new people and to, you know, create a new future for themselves that they've chosen. Like those feelings are what changes lives for me. So it's not always the make sure you tell them this thing and make sure that you do that thing on that date. Those things help us get there, but it's how, and our, you know, the social economy is all about making people feel what they need to feel at that time in their life in order for them to be emboldened and brave enough, or, you know, whatever the challenges that they're facing, to feel vulnerable, you know, to allow themselves to feel vulnerable, whatever that is. It's the how that person feels that enables them to take that next step, which is, you know, helps them to improve their life and their, you know, whatever it is that they're facing. So it's not always about what we do. It's the why and the how, I think, sometimes, and the feeling that always is a motivator for me.
Yeah. That's lovely. Thank you very much for sharing that. What about you, Helen?
I think we're really lucky in this job in that every day we meet people who've kind of made things happen. And it's not difficult to find motivation in our work at all. But I did some work recently with a group of residents and people who represent VCSE organisations, where we did that thing and we handed over a bit of power. It wasn't enough power because it kind of had a framework around it, because like other programmes, we had to do it within a certain time frame and we had to kind of crack on. But we got people together and we got them together consistently, and we asked them what was important to them, and we gave them opportunity to kind of develop their skills so they could think solutions that would work. And they came up with responses that were things that we would have never done, and that our partners who were working on the programme would have never done. And so I saw that thing happen where you give over responsibility and a different, really impactful solution that created me a lot of work was brought into being. And the people who were involved in that, they said they enjoyed that process and they wanted more of it, and this is how things should be done. And they were giving their time, and they were all passionate about it, and they were respectful, and they were lovely to each other, and they listened. And just going through that process, it was on a really small scale, made me realise that if we can do this more often, we can make a much bigger, a massive impact.
Yeah, it's amazing. And what about you then?
Wow, I thought
close us off, Jonathan. What's inspiring and motivating you?
Well, some fantastic answers there and responses. So I feel a bit under pressure now. I'll probably sort of frame it from, or address it from the superhero real estate side of things. So my first passion, love, things I studied when I was going through education and where I volunteered was around environmental action and sustainability. And 20, 30 years ago, that was all. It was a bit of a challenge then, really, because you're having those conversations and trying, what are you doing that for, you know? Probably a bit different these days, hopefully. But I think in terms of always looking up to, I mean, Sir David Attenborough for me is just an absolute legend. The learnings that you had through all that, you know, watching him on the early age documentaries, but I think how that gets into your psyche and not just supports what you might be passionate about anyway, but gives you the sort of how you can take learnings from that and apply it to your everyday life as well. And we've just been talking prior to about, learning from nature and how they weave into our everyday life and everyday conversations, and I think that's really where, not just as a presenter and how he fronts things, his longevity and all that sort of stuff, but more about how he communicates that, but doesn't do it from a mammal to a human way in that sense, or it's about everything to do with nature. And I think that and the natural world, and I think that's massively important for this day and age, in not just in terms of things like climate change and those big threats and challenges, but also about how we can learn from that to sort of encompass some of those learning into our daily lives as well. So that's for me. But that's
no, absolutely, I agree. And if I would probably give a similar answer. Thank you so much, all of you. This has been absolutely wonderful. I have no idea how long we've been talking for. It always gets to this point, and I think it could have been a day now. We could have been here. I just completely lose track of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If anybody watching would like to know a little bit more about what we've been talking about, or would like to get in touch with Dawn or Helen or Jonathan, that you're absolutely able to do that. Drop a message, on social media, one of those things, or drop me an email. My email address will be at the end of the podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.